This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And that would be me, Jim Waters, in with you on this Wednesday. It's Hump Day, folks. If you need some good news, there it is right there, that when this show is completed today, we will be in the second part of this week. So don't despair. It's got to get better from there. But anyhow, we welcome you to Kentucky's Voice. We'd love to hear from you today, your comments, questions about what's we're talking about on this show or what we've been talking about recently. We're at 502-571-0970. And you can check out, by the way, we're live on the radio here on 970 WGTK each weekday from 11 to noon. And then you can see us on television at 4 and 8 o'clock this afternoon and this evening on Channel 21, full-powered TV station, Word Media, right here in great Louisville, Kentucky, where we are right now. And a great city, and we're bound to use this program to make it even better, hopefully. So glad to have you with us today. If you needed any more proof that the corrupt corporate legacy media was biased, check out the same corporate corrupt legacy media's handling of Donald Trump's so-called collusion with Russia to influence the 2016 presidential election that turned out not to be a collusion after all, apparently, according to the evidence. But you won't hear much about that from the corrupt corporate legacy media that spent a mammoth amount of time covering the Trump-Russia collusion theory. But guess what? You haven't heard much about the evidence that such a collusion did not, in fact, occur. This from the Conservative Media Research Center. Despite dedicating more than 2,284 minutes to hyping the Trump-Russia collusion theory, ABC, CBS, and NBC have largely ignored newly declassified evidence released by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, suggesting the Obama administration played a key role in manufacturing the hoax. In total, the networks gave, are you ready for this, just 2 minutes and 17 seconds of evening news coverage to a revelation that undermines years of their reporting. The network's evening newscast devoted 1,000 times more coverage to the Trump-Russia probe than to DNI Gabbard's declassified report, with the networks mainly claiming that Trump was just doing this in an attempt to divert attention away from the Jeffrey Epstein affair. Folks, we cannot make this up, okay? Here we go. According to the Media Research Center, ABC, CBS, and NBC evening news shows spent, as we said, 2,284 minutes pushing Russiagate, only 2 minutes and 17 seconds covering Gabbard's disclosures. CBS was the only evening newscast on July 23rd, and that would have been a week ago today, last Wednesday, to mention Gabbard's briefing. Even then, it downplayed the findings and pivoted to unrelated topics like Jeffrey Epstein. Morning shows, ABC, CBS, and NBC's morning shows offered a combined 3 minutes and 32 seconds, mostly focused on dismissing or reframing the claims. Sunday's news shows provided some more airtime, 16 minutes, 15 seconds, but most of it was used to discredit the revelations from Tulsi Gabbard, with only Senator Lindsey Graham defending Gabbard and really hammering the Sunday morning news shows for their lack of coverage. The networks ignored key findings, a doctored presidential daily brief, and John Brennan's dismissal of the Steele dossier's credibility. The media's failure to give meaningful airtime to Gabbard's declassification highlights a double standard, with outlets preferring to protect their precious narrative rather than confront new evidence. That is from the Conservative Media Research Center. Now, what ticks us conservatives off so much about this was the way that if this had been a Bill Clinton affair or questions about Joe Biden's mental capacity and ability to do the job of the presidency, the corrupt corporate legacy media would have been quick to move on. And if it would have been the equivalent, let's say, of a Jeffrey Epstein issue with President Trump, they would have been quick to move on, quick to grab the next thing, quick to take whatever comes along next and forget the coverage of a Bill Clinton affair or Joe Biden's mental capacity. And did he really sign those bills? Did he really sign those pardons? Did he really make those decisions? But not with a conservative, and certainly not with Donald Trump, a conservative populist We've seen the same thing in our state. When Republican Matt Bevin was running for re-election, the press treated Andy Beshear with kid gloves. They never let Bevin move on from some controversial comment or some misstep in his comments. And we've seen the same things in their treatment of Beshear during the COVID lockdowns, defending him to the hilt. I mean, here's a guy that sent state troopers out to church parking lots in the Commonwealth of Kentucky to take down the license plate numbers of our fellow Kentuckians on Easter Sunday because they dared to defy the orders of King Andy. The press gave him a pass on that, but they hammered on our state lawmakers for cutting taxpayers' burdens, requiring more accountability from our education system, and for their votes on school choice and education freedom. That's exactly why this project, Kentucky's Voice, is so needed. Kentucky's Voice is offering coverage and analysis of today's news from a conservative, common sense, Christian-based point of view. We have a unique opportunity here, folks, and I'm excited about this, to build a conservative media powerhouse that's needed in Kentucky that focuses on issues that we care about, conservatives care about. You know, so many times that's a problem here with the legacy media. It's what they don't cover, or it's what they give 20 seconds to at the end of the newscast. Things that people really care about here. And also with declining resources, how much coverage are you really getting about what's happening at City Hall or your county government or even in Frankfort? So where else are you going to go to turn to that will always be offering some reporting and coverage and analysis and opinion from a conservative, and yes, I love this, common sense point of view. You know, what did Mark Twain say? Common sense isn't, right? But we've got some here, right? And where else are you going to turn to that'll call an Andy Beshear or whomever when he reaches too far in his use of executive powers? What other media outlet here with a consistent presence on radio, TV, and across major social media platforms will even let you know that Tulsi Gabbard released declassified information, destroying the former claims of the corporate corrupt legacy media that spent a gob of time addressing the theory, but hardly any time at all when the theory proves to be untrue. You know, when I spent days in the newspaper industry, if there was a mistake made on the front page, the correction went on the front page. If it was made on the opinion page, it went on the opinion page. But things have changed now, and the media is not so quick to acknowledge their mistakes. That's why this media project, Kentucky's Voice, is so important and why it's so needed. And that's why we need to hear from you today at 502-571-0970. Let us know that you're listening. If you just want to, you can text us, by the way. That's a text number, the Kentucky's Voice text line. And then we catch up with those texts later on in the show. But we want to hear from you, 502-571-0970. And if you just want to say, hey, I'm watching, I'm listening, let us know what you're thinking about. Let us know what you think about what you hear on this program. And also, we're looking for help here. We're looking for citizen journalists, folks. And I have some more evidence, by the way, about why conservative media sources willing to call out the corrupt corporate legacy media are needed. And often, that evidence isn't only about what's covered, it's about what's not covered, as we said, and the corporate legacy media's own hypocritical attempts to divert attention, doing the same thing they accused Trump of doing. So here's Curtis Houck, managing editor of the Media Research Center, in a recent TV appearance talking about how the leftist corporate legacy media brazenly neglects Joe Biden's auto pen scandal while labeling President Trump a hypocrite for calling it out. Go ahead with that clip.
Well, a report from Newsbusters laid out that ABC, CBS, and PBS didn't cover the auto pen scandal at all. NBC gave it less than 40 seconds, just to give you an idea. If this doesn't show the bias in media and what the real agenda is, they are no longer interested at all in talking about what's true or in sticking to traditional sorts of news platforms where you report what's in the news.
Yeah, Dr. Zena, this one is absolutely stunning to take a look at just to see the numbers. NBC also on their website last week tried to push this insanely stupid story with James Comer claiming that he's a hypocrite because he uses like Adobe or DocuSign to send out like letters asking people to come in before the House Oversight Committee, as if that's kind of the same thing. President Trump had a really great soundbite on this last week that wasn't pointed out by the mainstream media, which is the auto pen was created, to put the presidential signature on like a letter to like a little boy who wrote to the president, not for major important, things like pardons, signing bills into law, those like really important things a president should be involved with. And it was the fact that Biden didn't know what was going on. Even the New York Times, as much as they tried to cover for him, admitted in the story after talking to him that things would change, people that they were going to pardon, new details came to light, and they didn't update the president on this at all. They just went ahead and signed it anyway. So it's not that it exists, it's that it was done without Biden really knowing what his signature was being affixed to.
And that's why we're doing this, to provide balance and coverage. And look, it's a free market. You want to hear news covered, opinion offered, commentary given from a conservative, common sense point of view. You have a choice now. You have a choice. Kentucky's Voice, we're here to do that. And also, I want to mention just a great opportunity here for if you're looking for an internship, you might be a college student studying journalism, communications, maybe political science. Maybe you're an aspiring media professional who wants to gain some experience in broadcasting, or you just have a passion for media. You want to help cover and spread the conservative message and do stories that the corporate media will ignore or miss. We've got a need for you. We want you. We're not like Uncle Sam, but we do want you. We've got a need for field reporters, video contributors, radio correspondents, writers, researchers, campus correspondents. You can contact me at that address there on the screen, the email address, jim.waters@kyvoice.org. We'll get you plugged in. Recently, Mayor Craig Greenberg announced the city will cooperate with federal immigration officials in return for no longer being labeled a sanctuary city. We'll be joined by Louisville Metro Councilman Kevin Kramer to get his thoughts on this and other issues going on next, right here on Kentucky's Voice.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Jim Waters back with you here on Kentucky's Voice. Thanks for staying with us today. Glad to have you here. We want to hear from you. Kentucky's Voice text line 502-571-0970. They're rolling in here. This off our text line. Local media has not done a thorough job reporting on the gang beating of two adults in Cincinnati last week. Should citizens be aware of this new threat? Yes, obviously. I think that's a pretty rhetorical question there. And we'll get into that maybe in a minute here in terms of crime and what people think about it. But we're glad to have with us today, delighted to have with us Councilman Kevin Kramer, a dedicated public servant representing Louisville Metro Council's 11th district, which encompasses part of J-Town, Hurstbourne Acres, Forest Hills, several vibrant subdivisions, as your bio said. I like that word, vibrant. That's a good word. But you're also an educator, 25 years, over 25 years at Mercy Academy. Wow, that's amazing. A rich history of teaching social studies and religion across Louisville schools. But almost as amazing, probably you would say, is 21 years on the Louisville Metro Council, which takes you all the way back to the merger, right?
Yes.
And you're a former president of the council, which is truly amazing considering this is a Democratic city, but you've been able to find ways to work with both caucuses on important things. And also, you are the vice chair currently of the Budget Committee, which is
chair.
Or you are chair. Sorry, chair of the Budget Committee. That must have been an older bio.
Yes.
You were vice chair. You're moving up, man. You're moving up. You went from vice chair to chair. That means more headaches and more responsibility. But you're also, and this is really impressive, chairing the National League of Cities Information Technology and Communications Committee. Have I got that right?
Well, I'm moving up there as well. I was recently elected vice president of the National League of Cities, and in November will take over as president of the National League of Cities.
So we're on the right track here.
We are.
But a proud St. X high school grad. I know we got that right because that was before. And you got degrees from Bellarmine and University of Louisville. And I'm giving this right. I won't give this every time, maybe, but you know, I think your first time on this show with this audience, I want people to know who you are. I want people to have an idea of your background. And you've taught adult education, coached youth sports in the J-Town and Hikes Point communities, great communities. And so we're just delighted to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. 21 years on Metro Council. You deserve some kind of award. You deserve all the awards and accolades we could possibly come up with.
Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. I don't know that that's entirely accurate, but I appreciate your kindness.
Well, I think it's important, though. You've seen, from this perspective, in terms of citizens and taxpayers and residents here, you've seen some changes. Let me ask you this, and I know we didn't talk about this, so This is on me. And this is not a gotcha question, but it's one that's come up, is how is this working, the merger? You know, we had a task force or a group of legislators that was looking at what was happening kind of outside the Watterson Expressway. Since some of those discussions happened about a year and a half ago, has there been some more attention paid, or what would you give us an update on that?
Well, actually, I think that's a great question. I think that's precisely the place we should start our conversation.
Excellent.
As a matter of fact, very often I'm asked, "Do I think merger's working? You know, did it accomplish the things we were hoping it would accomplish?" Nothing happens overnight, right? It's not a fast transition. I think, as is often the case, people don't know exactly what it is that they're getting into, and so they have expectations that might not be realistic. And when those expectations aren't met, they jump to the conclusion that it's not working. The easiest one and quickest one to talk about, and I know I've been doing this for 20 years, and I hope I'm not boring with your audience with something they've already heard, but it still comes up. You know, the city doesn't pick up my garbage. I thought we merged. Well, that was never the intent. We merged governments, and so the urban service district continues to exist, and they continue to get garbage collection. But when you look at the variety of different ways that people get garbage collection outside of the urban service district, we like the way that our services are provided. In some parts of the community, the garbage collection company will actually come into your backyard, past your fence, and pick up your garbage. I don't want to pay for that, but they don't mind paying for it. It's what they want. Merger was not intended to foist upon us one across-the-board approach. Yeah. So start there. Now let me answer your question. Yeah. Under the first two mayors, there was a tendency to treat all of Metro Louisville as if we were the old city of Louisville. Mm-hmm. Those of us who have always lived outside of 264 most of us have not been in the city, and we've had needs and experiences that were different, and our needs and experiences were being overwhelmingly overlooked. What merger was supposed to make possible was those of us outside the city would have an impact and influence over what was going on in our entire community so that we could use the resources more efficiently. We didn't get there right away, but we are getting there. So to your listeners and to anyone else who yes, I think merger's working better today than it was in the first 10 years. And hopefully, as we're going to talk about the changes on Metro Council, hopefully we'll see it continue to get better.
Yeah, I think there's this question, that as folks are paying taxes and supporting, is more attention being given to downtown needs and residents? That was one of the things that came out of these discussions, and I think it's okay to have those discussions, don't you? And to even it'll keep everybody on their toes, right?
Yes.
At City Hall. But I think it was a legitimate question in terms of emergency services, fire, police services, law enforcement, and some other things as well. And those were some of the topics that were discussed.
Sure. More than just okay, right? Yeah. I would go so far as to say that those conversations have to happen. There's still today a misunderstanding about the fact that folks in the urban service district pay a higher tax than those of us who live outside the urban service district. That higher tax covers things like garbage collection and fire protection. I pay for garbage collection in my neighborhood. I pay a separate tax to pay for fire protection. So while I may not pay as much to Jefferson County as the folks who live in the urban service district, I'm still paying for those things.
So the urban services district is what?
The former city of Louisville.
It's okay. So
yes,
that's right.
So you would think of it, the easiest way to think of it is it's a district to provide services, much like a fire protection district provides fire protection. They provide garbage collection, fire protection.
And what you're
others.
saying is folks in that district pay more for the services they're getting.
They pay more to Jefferson County because their services are provided by Jefferson County,
That's
by
right.
Metro Louisville, I should say.
Right.
They pay more to Metro Louisville because their services are provided by Metro Louisville. But when you look at what those services cost and you look at what's actually being paid, the folks who live in the urban service district aren't actually paying enough to cover the cost of the services provided. That sounds like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Those of us who live outside should be upset about it. Before people get too angry, step back and recognize there are a lot of things that happen in the urban service district that the folks in the urban service district should not be directly responsible for. Look at the number of high-rise buildings where folks from out here drive into work every day and drive back home. Look at all of the entertainment venues that are there where we're entertaining folks from out of town. All of those things need to be taken care of, and all of us in Louisville should be responsible for that, not just people who live in the urban service district. So the fact that they're not covering the urban service cost shouldn't be upsetting. What should be upsetting is this idea that somehow if you live in the urban service district, you're being unfairly taxed. That's certainly not true. And that conversation needs to be had, again, to your point, that conversation needs to be had so we can figure out what is the benefit for Metro Louisville in all of what's going on in this urban service district, and how do we make sure we take care of the needs across this entire community, not just focused on that one portion.
Well said. It's an interesting discussion, and we'll see how this works out. And speaking of Metro Council, we've got about a minute left in the segment. Not long enough by stretch. No. It's very important what you're talking about, and we need that was most important. But just quickly, Republicans have made great gains on the council, and will we see a Republican Metro Council? This could be amazing, Louisville.
I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. We expected to pick up at least 2 seats in the last election cycle. I think we would have been disappointed with only 1. We picked up 3.
Yeah.
The next election cycle, I think, is going to be really, really interesting.
It's going to be interesting. This is an interesting discussion already. Kevin Kramer, the 11th District Metro Council representative, here with us. Glad to have him with us. Stay with us for more with Kevin coming up on Kentucky's Voice. Don't go away.
Yeah, so when we get back, I do hope we get a follow-up on that.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, thanks for staying with us here today on Kentucky's Voice. We're live on the radio till noon today, and you can watch us on TV. I'll wave to you there. See, and then you'll say, hey, I heard him saying that, now I see it. At 4 and 8 o'clock today here on Channel 21. Glad to have you with us. Hope you'll make this part of your day. And correction on that, I guess the show's going to eventually maybe air at 8. It will be on at 4 o'clock, okay? So we've got that correct. And but watch us again at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And also let us know you're watching, listening. What are your thoughts, opinions? You got a question for Councilman Kevin Kramer, who's here with us, 21 years on the Louisville Metro Council. He knows everything. He knows more than anybody ever forgot about what's happening in this city, and we're fortunate to have you with us today. Councilman, thanks for joining us. And,
my pleasure.
Longtime member of the council. You've seen a lot of changes through the merger. And we've also seen changes in Kentucky in terms of political. There's been a sea change, really, if you look at the state as a whole. Back when Senator Mitch McConnell was not senator, he was running for senator, even the city of Louisville was 4-1 Democrats. In order to win, the state really was pretty much, I think, 3-1, 4-1. I know Louisville was like 4-1 Democrats, and the state was heavily Democratic at that time. So to win, he had to get Democrat votes, right? But that's changed now. The Republicans, for the first time in history, and a couple of years ago, had more registered Kentuckians in their party, the Republicans, more registered Republicans in Kentucky than Democrats. And but Louisville remains Democratic, but we're starting to see a change, as we were talking about before the break, on the makeup of the Metro Council, which is partisan, which is, and I guess that's a question too. We see some discussion. I guess we're going to have a nonpartisan mayor's race, right? Is this something we're going to see is this something we should see in the Metro Council, or is the partisan makeup a way for people to kind of separate folks they would agree with from folks they don't, or folks they think are conservative versus those that aren't, maybe?
I think that's a great question, probably a whole different radio show, so I don't know if I can get into all of that. I will say for me personally, I grew up in Louisville, and certainly if you thought about politics when I was younger, you would have wanted to be a Democrat. You didn't have a political future. I registered as a Republican when I was 18 years old because of political philosophy. And so to your point, are the parties a way to vote with people who are more aligned to your thinking? For some of us, yes, that's true. But for others, we join the party that we think we can get elected in. So I'm not. Again, that's a story for a different day, I suppose.
Right.
But in
the
Louisville,
Republicans' chances and why this is happening.
I think in Louisville you're seeing probably nationally, but certainly in Kentucky, and I think it's coming into Louisville as well. When we talked about merger, there was an understanding that folks who lived in the urban center overwhelmingly would be Democrat and would expect a certain type of services, versus those of us who lived outside of the urban core had a different attitude about what government was. Merger made it possible for those of us who had a different view of government to become involved. And I welcomed the opportunity. I was naive enough to think that I could win, and I'm grateful that my naivete paid off. But to your point, those first couple years, you still had this overwhelming sense in Louisville that it was a Democrat stronghold. The state just not too long last session changed the law, and so now all of us at the local level will run nonpartisan.
Oh yeah.
So the mayor and the council will run nonpartisan. It's interesting that change is going to come now after the last election. The Republicans picked up 3 seats. It's going to be really interesting to watch the election and how it plays out. One of the things that we know is true is that there are portions of Metro Louisville where a large percentage of the electorate just checks a box. They'll check the box that says Republican, or they'll check the box that says Democrat. They don't necessarily know who's on the ballot, just Democrat or Republican. In this next election cycle, if someone chooses to do that, that vote will not count at the local level. So I'm saying to all of your listeners, if you care about politics and you want to make sure you're actually voting for a candidate in the upcoming local election, please, please, please make sure you check the name of the person you want in office.
So you can't just do a straight
If
party
you
thing.
check straight Republican in the next election
you
cycle,
won't vote. Essentially, you're left out.
you
of
are
the
left
council.
out of local elections entirely.
And that's right. And thanks for correcting me. They actually did pass. I knew keeping up with this is a challenge sometimes
sure.
with the local level. But do you like the change?
I would say I think the jury's still out, right? If you look at cities across the state of Kentucky, overwhelmingly they vote nonpartisan. We had a little conversation earlier about my role with the National League of Cities. When you look at cities and towns and villages across the entire United States, overwhelmingly they run nonpartisan. Most issues at the local level really are nonpartisan. How you cut the grass, or whether or not you cut the grass, that's a discussion. How we take care of buildings that belong to us, or should we even own buildings? Those are discussions that you have at the local level. I don't know that that's necessarily partisan, but when you have a holdover to the previous way of doing things in Louisville, especially, where people are just checking that box and you end up with a council that's overwhelmingly Democrat but isn't necessarily representing the people that they were elected to serve, that's problematic. And I think we overcame that somewhat in the last election. I was looking forward to making strides in the next one. But in the next election, you won't be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes it incumbent on us as Republicans to make sure that people understand we're doing what you want us to do.
On
Please
the other hand,
keep giving us a chance.
On the other hand, to your point though about that, you can make the case for office based on what you've done, your record, and not so much what party
Absolutely.
you are. So there could be, as you said, since most issues are nonpartisan, that could also be beneficial in some cases.
It absolutely can.
And I guess we talk about Republicans, but really a more conservative council,
Right.
when it comes to spending of taxpayer dollars, prioritizing of spending. Let's talk about that for a minute. You're the chair of the budget committee
Yes.
on the Metro Council. What are the priorities? And, things that people use and take for granted pretty much every day: the streets, the roads, the utilities, the sewer, the water, all of these things that you deal with. And those have to be priorities, right?
They do. You left, and I don't think you did on. You may have mentioned public safety.
Public
but,
safety. No, we need to mention that.
I need to keenly make sure we capture that one.
Yeah. And that's probably, we could start there. I mean, public safety is that's a big budget item, and it's an important priority.
It's the biggest budget item, right? And if you talk to citizens, and then again, not just in Louisville, across the United States, one of the top three in just about every conversation is going to be public safety. And some will have it first, others maybe third, but it's always in the top three. And in Louisville, we have had our share of struggles trying to respond. Quite honestly, the previous administration was not very, I'm going to try to be kind about this, he was not very favorable to the police department. And we had officers who were doing their level best, and we had really good officers on the street, and they just didn't get the support that they needed from the leadership of the police department, who was chosen by the previous administration, and from the administration itself. It's very difficult to do that job any day of the week. It's exceptionally difficult to do that job when you know that your bosses aren't appreciative of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's and with the challenges that we have of attracting good people to the law enforcement profession,
Certainly,
that certainly doesn't help.
not at all. And what that does is it makes it harder to get really good officers because they'll look to go somewhere else. And the good officers that we have a really hard time staying, and it becomes less and less safe for them. And you end up being faced with having folks come on to the department that you would otherwise not choose. And so having an administration that understands that radically changes the conversation.
Yeah. So where are we with public safety. We'll just stay with that for a minute.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
It's not where we want it to be, obviously.
In terms of what, numbers?
The number of shootings is down, which is really encouraging.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that one up is a number of years ago, there was a bit of, chest thumping about how great we're doing because the number of murders was down. Well, we dug into the numbers. The number of murders was down, but the number of shootings was not. What that meant is that the people who were pulling the trigger either weren't as good a shot or the hospitals were better at taking care of people. So we had victims of shootings that were surviving, but the number of shootings hadn't actually gone down. What we've seen in the last couple years, last year and a half actually, what we've seen is the actual number of shootings is going down. That's something that we should be really proud of.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly something we all should be working for, no matter what
we're
our
not
political
not there yet.
No matter what our political leanings might be. And when you talk about crime, I guess there's been a perception, that downtown, especially with COVID.
Right.
How are we doing? We don't have enough time for any of these questions, but how are we doing post-COVID in terms of safety? Is it safe downtown?
Yes. So the downtown discussion does require much more than we have time for. We don't have as many people back downtown as we had and as we honestly need. We can only do so much with convention business that supports our local businesses. We used to fill those office buildings downtown, and so all of those folks were supporting the downtown area as well. We need to get back to that. To your question about crime or about safety, downtown was never as unsafe as the media would make it sound to begin with, and it is as safe now as it had been. So yeah, it's not an unsafe. I'd never feel uncomfortable walking downtown.
And I know with the Breonna Taylor situation and some of the aftermath of that, but sometimes perceptions come into play.
Absolutely.
And I know that's a challenge for you because everybody wants to put their best foot forward. We want to put our best foot forward as a city. We're competing against other cities for all kinds of things,
Right.
Not just convention business, but business in general, right? In economic growth and development. When you go to like Nashville or Indianapolis, how do you feel about Louisville? We can talk about that when we come back. We're out of time in this segment. Talking with Kevin Kramer, who, by the way, is a Louisville councilman, not a state one. I think I saw that on the screen. He's Louisville councilman, 11th district. This is a work in progress, Kentucky's voice, but we're glad to have you with us. Stay with us for our final segment here. Councilman Kramer's going to hang around and chat a little more. We've got a lot more to talk about. Don't go away. Kentucky's voice coming up, our final segment.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Well, we're back with Councilman Kevin Kramer and here on Kentucky's Voice. Thanks for staying with us today. Here we're live on the radio till noon. And this is a work in progress, Councilman Kramer. We're building this. We appreciate you coming in. And what's important here is that people are getting informed about what's happening. What we're doing is we're building a statewide conservative media outlet. But, Louisville's always going to be a big part of that discussion because we're an economic driver here for the state. And what's happening here really does matter for our entire state and community. And we appreciate you coming in today. But we were talking about, I hear a lot. People, because I'm in this position, people will say, well, what about Nashville? What about Indianapolis? They say, when I go up there, when I go to Nashville, I see all the cranes out there. They're building things. Of course, they don't know what they're building. The people telling me this, but that makes a difference, doesn't it? What they're building, what they're actually doing, that matters when you try to compare what's happening in cities. Sure it does. And for folks like myself that are elected and we go to other towns and we see those cranes, that is a measure of what you see happening in a city, the growth that you see. But yes, you're absolutely right. Like, what are those cranes building? Are they building hotels to catch up with Louisville because we're already ahead of them? If that's the case, then I don't know that I would worry. And we've been building a lot of hotels. We have just opened Omni just a couple years ago. Several boutique hotels have opened, and we're in the process of building a couple more. So I think we're doing really well, especially in that area. Yeah. So. One thing we were talking about is we don't have pro sports. I know there's been we have a nice arena. We have a nice facility. We're set up for that. But we don't have it. Most of our competitors that I hear about do. Sure. Indianapolis, Nashville, Charlotte, those places. So maybe that's a project maybe the council, and I know it's been discussed. Actually, it's something that we not only should be looking at, but have been. We do have a beautiful facility at the Yum. When we built that, we built it with an eye towards a possible NBA team, and now with Caitlin Clark and everything that's happening in women's basketball. Right. There's no reason that we shouldn't consider that as a possibility for the WBNA. But let me interject here. We don't want taxpayer dollars being used to subsidize wealthy developers to build these. No, projects. the way that the Yum Center was structured, it will, through tax incremental financing, it will pay for itself in a number of years. I mean, we've got skin in the game too, but it matters. And then also, I want to mention we do have. And I'm proud to say we do have a professional sports team in Louisville. People often don't think about or recognize it, but we have Racing Louisville. And they are not just a good women's soccer program. They're at the top of their league, and they're in the top league. We have a men's soccer program, Racing Louisville City. Louisville City is in the league down from MLS. Yeah. When that stadium was built, it was built with an eye towards an expansion into the next level. So we've got a great basketball facility. We've got a great soccer facility. We have a lot of great concerts momentum here. We've got a lot going on. We do. And more. And let's hope the downtown. I'm pulling for Louisville. I'm pulling for the downtown to recover, revitalize. A couple things I want to ask you about, though, while we have a few minutes left here. We're glad to be joined today by 11th District Louisville Councilman Kevin Kramer here with us, and hope this won't be the last time. Hope this is just the first of many times. But kind of a tough issue. Last week, the mayor announced that he had received a letter from the Department of Justice saying that Louisville was considered a sanctuary city. And the mayor, we quickly responded saying, we will go back to cooperating with immigration officials. If I've got this right, I understand the way we used to, which is a 48-hour hold on inmates that are whose time may have been served, but they're here illegally, and we're going to give federal immigration officials a chance to pick them up. So let's hear the clip from Mayor Greenberg, and I'd like to get your response to what's going on here.
The Assistant Attorney General also stated that Louisville's current practice violates federal law. And when federal law conflicts with state or local laws, federal law governs. The federal government's 48-hour detainer is standard practice for the state of Kentucky's Corrections Department. It was also standard practice for the Louisville Department of Corrections until 2017. We are currently the only city in Kentucky that does not follow this practice. Now, when any inmate is booked into our jail, they are fingerprinted and entered into a federal database to which the United States Department of Homeland Security has access. This has been the practice for years, well before I was elected mayor. If Homeland Security tells Metro Corrections that an inmate has a detainer, Metro Corrections notifies DHS when the inmate will be released. Right now, Metro Corrections provides that notice to DHS about 5 to 12 hours before the inmate is released. Prior to 2017, DHS received 48 hours notice. I've been assured by the United States Department of Justice that if we reinstate the 48-hour detainers for inmates who've been arrested for crimes, Louisville will be taken off the federal sanctuary city list. Accordingly, Metro Corrections will begin honoring the 48-hour federal detainers as soon as practical because the stakes are too high. In turn, Louisville will no longer be considered a sanctuary city by the federal government. This change in designation is critical.
Well, Councilman Kramer, Mayor Greenberg there, responding quickly to this Department of Justice letter. Did we know that we were a sanctuary city? Was that, I had not heard that, designation used for Louisville.
No.
I mean, did we know?
Well, first of all, let me respond by saying we were not a sanctuary city. We were never a sanctuary city. The fact that we showed up on the sanctuary cities list was a huge surprise to all of us because we debated this, as the mayor mentioned. And in our debates, we made it clear that we were not a sanctuary city. There weren't, the makeup of the council we talked earlier has changed. The makeup of the council at the time was such that what we were able to do was take any language out that suggested sanctuary city, take out the issues that would have established us as a sanctuary city. We still voted against the ordinance that was put forward. But we did make sure that the ordinance that passed was not a sanctuary city ordinance.
This 48-hour detainment
that was buried in the language that they passed. Again, we tried to stop it. We didn't have the votes.
So the Democrats,
I feel sure that today we'd have the votes to stop that from happening. Yeah. Listen, it's not just about sanctuary city. It is about, I don't want to diminish, but it's bigger than this. No law enforcement agency in the United States can be successful by themselves. We need to cooperate with Spencer County and Frankfort and the federal government. Mm-hmm. The federal government needs our help. Frankfort sometimes, Shelby County sometimes. The last thing in the world any law enforcement agency should do or want to do is refuse to cooperate with people that they're going to need help from later. We tried to make that argument on the council. Unfortunately, there weren't enough of us, and we lost that argument. I don't think we'll lose it again.
Yeah. Well, kudos to the mayor for his comment, coming out quickly, providing good leadership.
Very pleased with his media
and
response.
Your support of that. We appreciate that. So we got just a few minutes left here. Housing is a big issue. Roads, streets. Tell us what we need to know about priorities, what we're going to see happen, and housing. Housing's been a big concern.
Great question. I think I was asked yesterday by friends from the National League of Cities if I had to list my three or four. Housing is at the top. Public safety, infrastructure. Those two are either second or third, and I don't know which one belongs where. So I'll start with housing. I think there's a huge misunderstanding when we talk about housing and homelessness. People lump those two things together as if they're the same thing, and they're truly not. There is a lack of housing in just about every city across the United States. In Louisville, it started with the huge recession in 2008, and what you saw was we had a large number of home builders in town. Some of them reduced their amount of buildings, others just stopped altogether. And we've not seen a resurgence in home building. And yet we continue to have children, and our children continue to want to live in places where we don't. So we have a housing shortage, there's no question. And affordable housing is an especial challenge. But homelessness isn't necessarily caused by a lack of housing. Homelessness is caused by a whole host of different problems and issues, all of which need to be dealt with.
Well, let's talk about housing for a second. And people may not be having children or having families because they can't get the housing they want.
There just isn't enough available housing.
How much, do you think that's a legitimate concern?
It is a legitimate concern. And the problem that we have is that when the government steps into an arena, like housing, for example, the government is so focused on one style of housing that it really isn't fixing some of the problem that you're talking about, where a family just can't afford to move into the neighborhood they grew up in. We need to be building a variety of different kinds of housing, including small homes. And I'm not talking tiny houses. I'm talking, 12 and 1,300 square foot homes. The intermittent, inner range homes, 1,800 square feet. I think the day of the McMansion is pretty much gone. So we have an abundance of stock in that category, but we need to build more. And we do need apartments, but that should not be our primary focus.
Maybe other things too, like duplexes.
Absolutely.
Or different, or small, or loosen some of the requirements for
That's where some zoning conversations have to come into place. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything on roads? We've got a minute left.
I am really proud of the work that the Republicans on the council have done. We started 10 years ago insisting that we needed to do a better job of taking care of our roads. We asked Public Works what they needed. They said $20 million a year for 10 years. We put it in the budget. The next year, the mayor presented a budget that didn't have it. We put it in again. The next year, the mayor presented a budget that didn't have it. We put it in again. The current mayor gets it and put $30 million in the budget last year. We are absolutely moving in the right direction. Again, still a work in progress. We're not where we need to be, but it's getting better.
Yeah. Well, good for you, and keep pushing there and keep representing the taxpayers and the people in your district. And we're delighted to have you here today. Thank you.
I appreciate your having me.
It's been terrific. 11th District Councilman Kevin Kramer, and we appreciate he's engaged, he's paying attention, and he's representing his district. What more could you ask for from a local servant? And you are that in so many ways. And you won't say it, but I will. So we appreciate you being here, though. Keep up the good work, and you there, keep up the good work. We appreciate you tuning in. Join us again on television this afternoon, 4 o'clock, right here on Channel 21. Thanks for staying with us today. Have a great rest of the day. God bless. And join us tomorrow for Kentucky's Voice at 11 a.m.